Howdy. 416, is my voice good against this kind of level, or is it too low? Haha, yeah, maybe that works. Real quiet, okay. I'll turn myself up a little bit. How is that for a change? That should be maybe better. I'll talk a little louder too. I'm trying to kind of got like a directional mic, so, and then I've got a lot of extra light. Okay, much better. Cool. Thanks, Requiem. So yeah. Yeah, I'll make sure to keep it nice and loud and project. I've just been talking for the last hour's practice. All right, well, so welcome to How to Beads. In this little YouTube tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to beads. Let me make sure it's focused. Hold on. Come on now. That's better. Okay. Oh, hold on. My EMS spin is blocking the actual text of the module. It's going to go over here. That's better. So, Beads is a module by Mutable Instruments. It's the final Mutable Instruments module, the successor to Clouds, and it's real cool. 14 HP, whatever. Now, just I want to preface this by saying I never owned a Clouds, Monsoon, whatever, Supercell, and so this has been my first experience with granular synthesis. I got this module back in August, and I have been using it pretty extensively since then. It's one of my new favorites, and it really has a lot of depth. It really does a lot of different things. It was my first mutable module, and so kind of granular synthesis, with learning about it, this was, I think a lot of people, Clouds was their very first introduction to what granular synthesis actually is, because you hear that term and you're not really sure what the hell it means. And so essentially what Beads is it's a sampler. It's an audio-based effect that takes audio and then it morphs and modifies it. So you put audio in, it chops it up into these things called grains, and then it puts grains out and lets you change different things about the grains. It can apply a volume envelope to them, so they can be different lengths and kind of come in at different envelopes. It can select different positions in time that it wants to sample from to actually determine the time at which the grain is being pulled from, you know, earlier or further from now. It can alter the pitch, most importantly, and that tends to be tuned. So Beads has a very nice tuning system. And it can play a whole bunch of these grains at once. It can feedback them back into each other, all sorts of stuff. Now, that's all pretty abstract, so what that actually means is a lot easier to kind of see. Let me go over a quick rundown of the front panel controls, so everyone knows what Beads does. The very first thing is just some basic stuff. This little orange knob here is a dry-wet mix, so over here it will be completely dry. Over here you'll be only hearing beats. Get a little crossfade. This red knob here is the reverb, so Beads has a very nice little reverb on it, and if I turn, the reverb always applies even to the dry signal. So I've got rings in Easter egg mode here. With reverb. I see people complain about people using Beads only as a reverb, but honestly, it does sound that good. If you notice that kind of volume clipping, that is one of the few issues I do have with the module, which is that it has an internal limiter that can be a little annoying. You can also change the input gain by holding this knob and then kind of adjusting it here, so turn it up a little bit. a little better. Yeah, people say that about Cloud's Forest scene. Hopefully, Beats is not open source yet, but it will be probably. It could be tomorrow. Literally, it's coming, and so because it could be open source so very soon, it will. That will definitely be one of the features that is the first thing modded to like Beats Parasite. Will be turning off the internal limiter and the auto adjust and probably the wavetable synth thing, which I'll get into later. So, reverb. We've got, for our other big controls, we have, firstly, pitch, which is the pitch of the grains. This little shape thing changes the envelope from a square to a kind of decay envelope to a sort of smooth sine to then a ramp up. Then we have size. Size will determine the size of the grain from very plucky, and you can't quite see it on my video because of how I've got the light. Let me move one of my lights. No. Hold on. How's that? Oh, there you go. Let's see a little better. You've got a little notch there. So that'll be at like no size. Then it'll get bigger, 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 bigger. And then you could do reverse as well here. And then at the very far right, it will put it into its stereo delay mode, which I'll get into as well. Then we have time. Time changes the time at which you're sampling from. So if it hears something, this will do it closer to when it heard it, and this will be further back. So it's like if you had a reel of tape, would be how long the kind of delay is. And when you put it into delay mode, this changes the delay time. Lastly, we have density. So to explain what density does, I'm going to have to explain what seed does. So beats can be put into two different seed modes. It can be just manually seeding, which is just when you press this button and it lights up green, or if you hold it for a second, or you can actually hit freeze and hold it. You hold it and press the freeze button, it'll go into this continuous seeding mode where it's kind of glowing like that. So if we're just in manually seeding, then what we can do is we can play like a drone into it. Let's get a nice long. And we'll freeze the buffer. So it just freezes what it heard. So now what it heard has been stuck in its buffer, and whenever you press seed, it'll play that grain. So we can adjust how long it is. Right now it's in the decay envelope. Or we can reverse it. You can't really hear on that sound, but you can change the envelope. So it goes up like that, or like this, swell, or like a square. Now if we go to time, you can see it'll go back a little earlier. That'll change when it's hearing it, and then pitch, of course. Pitch is nice because it has a virtual dead zone where you can really easily get to one octave up, so that wasn't even with, like, I just did that right there. Like, yeah, it's got a pretty nice, it's pretty forgiving. So it's a little bit of quantization, but it's still pretty smooth. It just kind of snaps, which I really love. This is one of my favorite behaviors of it. Now, density is how much it seeds that grain, how many times it'll kind of do it. So you can hear with density, if you go to the left of the middle, it will be continuous rate. So you can hear it going da 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 da, and it goes pretty fast. At the farthest rate, it goes to a C1 note, so it's audio rate. Now, if you set it to continuous seeding mode, it will basically just treat this like a clock, and it will continuously seed. So it's basically like you're holding down this button. So if I hold down the button for a second, it'll... hold on. Then I don't have to hold it down. Now if we go to the right, it will do the same thing, but it will kind of randomly pulse them in, so... And we'll get faster. With any of the random things, if you're listening in stereo, it will actually kind of randomly pan these, also left and right. This is what I think people mean when they say it's a texture synthesizer, because it kind of makes this texture-y thingy, or what she means when it says texture. So that's basic controls. You can do most of the beats things with that. But, you know, what does that sound like when we're putting audio instead of just freezing it, right? So I'm going to keep it in continuous seed mode because it's easier to use without having to mash this fucking button. You do also have a seed input. Now, if you put a clock into here, or you can use a trigger if it's in normal grain mode, and it will just hit that button for you. Or if you have it in continuous mode and you use this as and you put a clock source into here, it will change the behavior of density and make it a clock divider on this side and a probabilistic kind of thing like branches or something on this side. I'll get into that a little later. For now, let's just make some pretty sounds. So turn density up a little bit. I'll keep time down to about there. I'll mess with size. I'll keep my shape to a smooth sort of whew, and we'll move our pitch up. We'll start with the pitch right here, and you can kind of hear it. So again, I'm playing rings in Easter egg mode. Up an octave. That's a sound you hear a lot when you see granular things. It's kind of a big shimmery thing. If you put the pitch up even higher... Oh, right, feedback as well. This is feedback. This will run it into itself, which gets you kind of a shimmer effect. So, here, I'll do the long one again. You hear that kind of... Ta-na-na-na-na. Cool if you don't change the pitch. Or if you shimmer down, which a lot of people don't do. Lots of fun there. The size can also be used to make kind of a reverse delay. So, use kind of something pluckier so you can hear it. those are all kind of, oh, you can hear it kind of plucking along. Oh, I forgot to talk about the middle button. This middle button is the quality selector, which is a lot of fun to mess with. So currently it's got 4 modes. It's got a white, clean digital, then a cold digital, which is this teal. Then it's got an orange sunny cassette, and then the red scorched cassette. So this will change the internal sample rate and bit depth. So you can get from your clean, and it also changes the buffer time. So I think it's about 2 seconds in stereo on here, and then it's like 4 seconds here, 8, and then 16 seconds stereo. So you get more time as you lower the quality. So if I go to here, hold on, you'll hear it kind of actually listens to it way longer. A little crunchier. Ooh, feedback. Let's turn down the quality a little more. It also applies a little bit of wow and flutter, I think, on the red or the orange modes. It's not that much, but it's really nice and crunchy. You hear even there, it's like more like a delay now. I'm not touching the keyboard. Just doing that. Listen. So the buffer can get quite long. 16 seconds doesn't sound like a lot, but in practice, it's a very long time. So you want like longer memory, but you're okay with sort of a lower quality. The red mode's good for you. I like the white mode the most because nice and high quality. Anyways. Oh, we've also got these things. So these are the attenuate randomizers. I'll get into these in a little bit, but suffice it to say, it's basically built-in modulation. You don't actually need that much modulation on beats because it's got these 4 are essentially, and my fucking droid cam thing is covering them up. But these are essentially slow random LFOs when nothing is plugged into them. So for instance, the pitch, right? If we turn these to random, they can get weird. We can change the time, the size. Sometimes it'll be smaller. Or here, when it decides it wants to sample, so that's on the size. They're zeroed in the middle, and then it's got 2 kind of flavors. It's like a peaky random and then like a different random. They don't sound all that different to me, but I think they are a little different. Weird. I love it. I wish density had one of these. The one parameter that doesn't have one is density, and it's the one I really wish did have one. So, yeah, if someone can remap like the time one or something, or the shape one I kind of never use. Shape can remap to density and parasites. That would be awesome. Now I'm going to get into some kind of patch examples of things that people I don't really see doing with beats. So, first thing we're going to do is one of the ways I use it, which is, this is a clock source from my sequencer, which I am going to need a spare channel for, I am realizing. I'm just going to clear whatever's in here. 85 BPM, that is slow as hell. So, what I'm going to do is, shut this down, I'm going to put in a little sequence. So this is just on the key step. So we've got a sequence here going into beats, and the clock that beats is receiving is a 16th pulse. So we're in continuous seated grain mode, which means that this is now acting as a clock divider. So if we put it all the way to the far left, it will be 1-to-1 clock division. Hold on. Should be. What did I do wrong here?
Oh, sorry. My clock is on a drum channel. I thought it was just coming out of the clock here.
So in here, it's basically hitting the seed every 16th note. So if I turn the wet only to beads, now all we're hearing is beads, and it's taking what it's hearing, and it's making a seed, a grain every time, seeding a grain every time it has a clock thing, a clock pulsing. So if you move this over here, it'll divide it. Turn it over. If we go to the middle, it won't do anything, and then if we go over here, it will kind of turn the probability down as we go more towards the middle. Make really interesting pseudo-random rhythms. Now when you're using it in this operation, the attenue randomizer on the side is going to be really good. This is kind of like we're modulating the decay of the envelope, if you imagine it like that. Go up to the pitch. So it can be a really powerful tool in adding an upper rhythmic layer on top of the sequence. We've reversed. I make this way slower now. Weird stuff at the envelope. A bit of bass line. Again, dry signal is quality. Oh, hi, Allie. feedback come in. So that's just so much fun, that kind of rhythmic, punchy modulation, which I don't see a lot of people doing with beats. You can make it, it's really good for if you have a large chord that's kind of like a pad that's thrown out, like sort of on what I'm using on Beats Easter egg, where it's like, you've got like a, ooh. Just turning that into like, playing this out. Now another fun thing you can do with beats is if you want, you can use beads as kind of a to take something, take a sound, sample it, and then play it just on beats, because the pitch control, if you turn the attenuator all the way to the far right, it will track 1 volt per octave. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull out a big chord. On beats, I'm going to actually just take the pitch control that is currently assigned to rings. Oh, that's strum. Hold on. No, not strum. Or actually, I will use strum. Hold on. What we're going to do is we're just going to take these both off. Turn down damping. So I'm going to take my gate and I'm going to put it into seed. And I'm going to take my pitch, which is this yellow cable, and I'm going to put it into pitch. I'm going to turn the attenuator randomizer all the way to the right. And we're going to make sure we're in just continuous grain mode. Let's turn that off. Come on. Oh, it doesn't want to turn off. Why is that? Do I have to hit this as well? Oh no, it was in it earlier. Right, hit that again. Okay, I guess it's fine. Oh, it's because the density was all the way up. So put density in the middle. It will only trigger on a gate input. How did I mess this up? Oh, sorry, I swapped pitch and gate. That was the main issue here. Red is pitch, yellow is gate. So that's giving it like a pitch. I'm going to turn down all this. And now, the sound that we had in there can be played like an instrument. Really good for kind of ravey chords, you know, like. And your pitch will then kind of set the bass pitch. Now, as you change the pitch, it'll kind of subtly change where the sample actually is, so you might have to play around with time a little bit there. And pitch. If we go too high up, it'll want to play like the end of it. If we go kind of too... See, we have to kind of... It's like a little bit of a... There we go. Now you can use density here as like a weird kind of... Really strange. I actually want to say density will also track 1 volt per octave. Maybe. Let's just see. A little bit. squid up here. So really fun for chords like that if you want to do kind of housey stuff. I had a house sort of kit on a sample, squid sample. All right, so let's do, okay, I'm going to do the wavetable mode next because we've already got it set up for pitch. So I'm going to unplug the density thing. Now, to enter the wavetable mode, to many people's chagrin, you just unplug the audio and you give it 10 seconds and it will just automatically go into the wavetable mode. So that'll take a second. I think it'll blink here. Oh, we don't get freeze on anymore. Come on. Okay, it might be in it. Let's hear it. Oh, not quite yet. Come on, you. Oh, there we go. Huzzah! So how the wavetable mode works is it replaces the internal input. Yeah, so Stover Shuffle says it scares them often. It can totally jump scare you if you are patching and you have Beats' output still in and then you unplug and you just wait a second because you never know when it's coming. I know it's always 10 seconds, but it always seems like it's going to take a little too long. You're just like, ah! So when it turns on, what this does, so this is, we're not getting anything because we're all the way wet, but it will replace the dry input with a wavetable oscillator that is based on Platt's wavetables. So we're now hearing that. Now it also remaps times and feedbacks control. So instead of being the time that it plays from and the feedback, it changes this to a wavetable select and this to scroll through the wavetable. So if we hear it, the first one be a sine, giving us a little harmonic thing. And you can go through. These sound great. Kind of a vowely one. Has some FM wavetables as well, so it's FM-y. I really like. So, the wavetable modes are really fun. Additionally, if you have the time attenuate randomizer, this turns into the best control on the entire thing because it makes it like a timbral kind of modulator. I'm not touching it. So that's really good when you use it in combination with the fact that the grain just takes a little chunk of audio, which will essentially kind of make it into this sort of sample and holdy sound. So let's go back to recording a little sequence for this. So we're going to just go... Oh, fuck. Okay, other thing. It changes how the pitch attenuator randomizer works. So basically, at the very 0 point, it will track 1 volt per octave. And otherwise, the more you turn it here, the more it will kind of randomize that pitch. It's sort of hard to make it do it subtly, but you kind of can. Otherwise, it'll get kind of weird and random. And just as a note, you can play this. So seed, we're not using yet, but... Oh, and then pitch will, of course, set the root pitch of the oscillator. So you can use that as an oscillator on its own, but the nice thing about beads is the fact that it's a granular synth, so it can be a whole voice. So you can use the granular bit a little bit like a VCA, in that what you'll do is you trigger, if we go all the way wet, we trigger the seed with like as our gate input, and then, or well, you put a gate input from your keyboard or whatever, and then you have your pitch, and then basically every time you trigger it, which you can see on the gate seed here, it will use this as like an envelope control. So oh, we've got density up. And I think I have some modulation on this. Yeah. The nice thing about this is that it can make it kind of pseudo polyphonic and that it can ring out voices. So and you could put, make that a little higher. And we could put a sequence into that. Oh, what the hell? Hold on, I goofed that sequence up a little. And you can hear it gets a little out of tune. One issue with beads is that if you change it too quickly, it can kind of drift a little bit in terms of pitch. A solution to this is to use something like maths as like a gate delay. So I'm going to just take this as way off screen, I know. I'm going to put this into a channel of maths and use maths to just delay this gate like ever so slightly. It's an unfortunate feature, but it has to do with the sampling. I think it might be one of those things that people mod out, maybe. Another way to mitigate this is to just use a clock input here and then put it into continuous seeding mode. So like this, and then we put it into continuous seed mode so that we trigger it a different way. So here, and then we go, oh, come on, you. Oh. So it could be the problem with my key stuff. It's unfortunate, but you can get around it. I have Ornament and Crime patched up in a way. Ornament and Crime has a gate delay that actually solves the issue. It's like a supercell. Whoa. I had a little pitch drift on that. Got it figured out. So that's the one problem with your 10-bit randomizers is they can kind of drift a little bit if you don't zero them perfectly. There's a virtual dead zone programmed in, but it's small still. Here's the thing I was talking about with the timbre. So if you move this, it has this kind of sample and hold modulation on it. This will also change the bit depth of the oscillator. Great for kind of plucky, tuning noises. Kind of make organ sounds that ring out nicely. I really like the FM wavetables. These were added in the later firmware update. So if you've never updated your Beats firmware and you got it a while ago, you might not have these wavetables, so update it. Nice, glassy and digital. So, sorry, I got a little lost in that. It's a lot of fun. So, let's get to the last part I want to talk about, which is beads as a stereo delay. So, we're going to give our pitch information back to the lovely, lovely rings in the Easter egg. And I'm going to keep continuous grain mode on, I'm going to mute that. So, I put those in there. Now, what we're doing is we're sending it a clock. So I don't have a good visual representation of the clock coming into it because, or I guess I could. It's just, oh, is it swung? I should turn down the swung. Down to 50. So you can see, that's the clock. We're going to keep it in continuous mode because it turns this into the clock divider, which is nice. Now we're going to put it into stereo delay mode. So again, so, to get stereo delay mode working, first I'm going to set the pitch to the same. If you see the size of the little tiny infinity symbol, turn that all the way to this way. Oh, be in that. So, feedback will control kind of the feedback of the delay, and the relationship between time and density sets the clock rate. So normally how it works, I think, if it's not seated, is that, I'll take this out. This is like a base clock, and then this divides it down. There's actually a thing in the manual that I have handy. It tells you the clock divisions that will do a better job of explaining than I did. If you look right there, we've got the density clock division. It's a subdivision of this duration. Turn it away from 12 o'clock to use shorter divisions, so you'll go between these, and then over here you have less. So that's cool. Clock or tempo control. So yeah, beats is the delay. Manually, it will kind of, seat unpatched, seat is latched. The delay time is controlled by density. So we do want to latch this actually. So that's kind of a base rate. Now we can turn up feedback and get a little bit of. Now it's kind of weird because you've got this envelope on the delay, so that kind of gives it this little bit of volume tremolo thing happening. Oh, I should make sure these are all done. So it'll kind of, and here it's kind of fading in and out as I put it to this. I think maybe if you put it to square, it square will make it kind of work normally. It's got the nice Doppler-y pitch thing. And you can, of course, clock this. You put a seat in. Now this will work like a divider. And that kind of works like a pair of clock dividers, though. Got a sequence going now. Again, dry. The quality again. This will increase the delay time quite substantially, actually. So you get a longer delay. Maximum time, I mean. I've got the alt firmware on rings, by the way, for octave switching. Very nice. can't move that. Beads into rings is a thing. Oh, you could do beads into rings. We could try that if you wanted. Now, this can also be a pitch shifting delay, but it gets buggy. It's weird. Because it shimmers very rapidly. It's got this weird kind of ringing to it. I don't know if that's like a bug or just kind of a resultant way of how they derive this delay mode in DSP, but so you can hear as it feeds itself, it feeds back into itself. It every time it does this pitch shift, it does it again and again and again, just getting you there. Up and up. Shimmer down too. It can do that though. So, strange things. And it would sound good with actually vanilla rings. Let me just... This is a secret code in the alt firmware. But we can go back between vanilla rings and normal rings. So I'll go to my favorite mode, which is the modal. And we'll just... Again, you don't actually need to put beads into delay mode to kind of use it in a delay-y sort of way. So, like, if we just, you know, trigger it and then... It's already kind of a time-based effect. This is a reverse. Things are getting a little hot in the beads. We can just turn down the gain by holding this and doing this guy. cells that make those nice shimmery sparkles. Beginning to get really high, you hear that kind of little bit of a pitched warble at the top end is the alias thing when it's getting just so high pitched it can't handle it. And of course, if you just freeze it, some really spooky droning. You can also make it totally random. There's the alias thing. The longer I tend to do these demos, the more we get into unmusical weirdness territory. This sounds really cool. Earth modulation is internal from beats, and other than the pitch. Yeah, DJ MJR says, perfect solution, bring in a bass drum. You have a kick? Anything musical. Wards, DGNJR, Warps is in, it's in Parasite, so it's in wave folder mode, so. It's actually just an internal oscillator to the VCA. My bass, with a little envelope. Become almost a percussive element. Oh, yeah. Reverb's nice and big. Sounds good when you sidechain it. Nice thing about beats, it's very easy to get back to musical territory.
freeze, put our density to hereabouts, time, do that about there, turn down the randomizers. Easter egg. Hold these two. Get us into that. Boop.
So yeah, that's basically beads. It's a very powerful module. It's one of my favorite modules, honestly, and it just does so much. You know, it can be an oscillator. It can be a really good rhythmic audio effect. It can be a really good ambient effect. It can do all sorts of crazy sound design, sparkle stuff that you wouldn't expect it to be able to do. It's really good, especially for if you want just this granular, high, like, you know, twinkles, basically raindrop sort of sounds. It's really good at that. And you can even use it as a sampler to kind of sample a sound into it and put something, just whatever you want in there, and it will hear it and make that for as a sound to use. It does have a few problems, mostly the input gain, and I will note it can get a little bit hot. So having an attenuator or like a thing on a mixer so you can turn it down a little bit is really, really helpful, especially if you're using it in oscillator mode, because it can get loud. But other than that, it's pretty very useful. One thing to also note is that while Beads is not open source yet, it will probably be open source, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, within like a week, literally. Maybe a week or two. Emily said first week in January she would start working on it. So hopefully at some point this year we'll get Beads Parasites or some other kind of alt firmware for Beads that changes things. I'm sure inevitably things that I would expect are that will get a output gain trim, a way to disable the internal oscillator and the internal limiter, and maybe there'll be more quality settings. I'm sure. Now she has mentioned as well, Beads has a much more powerful processor than Clouds does, and there's tons of room left on this chip to implement other stuff. Lots of extra memory. So I think it's very likely that we'll get extra modes if someone like Matthias Poltrek, I forget his name, the guy who does the Parasite stuff. I'm sure someone will mod in some insane, totally nuts things happening. Maybe we'll get. I'm hoping we get Spectral Madness from Clouds, because it's the only part of Clouds that really appeals to me is the Spectral Madness stuff, and I'm sure Beads has the processing power and the chops to sort of do that. Other improvements, maybe a way to switch the attenuator randomizers to like normal attenuverters would be fun. I like them a lot, and having the lots of internal modulation is great, but it would be nice if you could just like use that as an attenuverter on something. I didn't mention also this button. So this is this assignable CV. Basically what it lets you do is it lets you basically CV control any of these things, any of these three parameters, and you can actually control all of them at once. So if you press the button, the light will change to which one that CV input is modulating, and if you hold it, it will actually let you kind of use it like a mixer, where it will sort of assign more. So that'll be like more or less to here, so more modulation on this one, and then this one, and also this one. So you can use it to kind of like modulate all three of these parameters at once with the same CV to varying degrees of attenuation, which is cool. The main one I think it's good for is the reverb, because you can use it like a gated reverb or like a swell. So we just go to reverb. Or like even like a gate. That's just a square wave into here, assigned to the reverb. Super cool. It can even do kind of a pseudo sidechain within itself if you put an inverted CV or something with your kick drum, and then you like make it pull the reverb back, or even pull back the kind of beats effect. So lots of modulation. Oh, I forgot to actually put CV into these. The whole thing about the attenuator randomizers is that if they're not plugged in, they're slow-moving LFOs. If they are plugged in, the left side from the middle will work as a normal attenuator, and the right side from the middle will work as a kind of as an attenuator randomizer. So it will take your CV and kind of randomize it, shuffle it up a bit. I'm going to pull out the manual again, because the manual has a really good graph for what that actually means. So like this is CV going in. You go from the middle, right, and you have like a sawtooth, then it will adjust the level of the sawtooth. If you go to the left, then it will adjust the level of randomized modulation that it's putting into that parameter. It's cool. Read the manual if you have beads. The manual's really, really good, and it has a lot of really helpful information just as to its operation. So read it. And yeah, so hopefully this has been helpful, demystifying a little bit for beads, because I know a lot of people get it and just are overwhelmed because it does so much stuff. But it really does you can tame it, you can make it sound good, and I really love it very much. So thanks everyone for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.